Chapter 9. The Light in the Woods. After New Year's, a strange and fascinating life began for Mona. One day she went to New York with Cuffy, wearing her best dress, her charm bracelet, and some new shoes with the beginnings of heels. Randy hugged her and said, "I know you'll be wonderful." Rush said, "You go ahead and knock 'em cold, Mona. I've got my fingers crossed." Oliver didn't say anything. He hung back and looked at her as if she were a stranger, and then suddenly, just as she was leaving, he smiled at her, his new guileless smile with 2 teeth missing in the front. Mona hugged them all, feeling grateful and loving. All the way in on the train she kept thinking about them. "I must do well," she thought. "I want them to be proud of me." Cuffy was the only one who had stage fright. Her face was pink, and her breath came fast. She kept looking at her watch, putting on and taking off her gloves, and when they arrived at the vast New York office building, which was their destination, she gave the taxi driver $5 and would have gone off without the change if Mona hadn't reminded her. "Don't feel sick or anything, do you?" Cuffy demanded anxiously as they went up in the elevator. "Wouldn't like some spirits of ammonia, would you? There's nothing to be nervous about, you know." "I'm not nervous, Cuffy," Mona said, smiling at her. At the 27th floor they entered the office of a Mr. Gage Prothero, an important gentleman to judge from the number of stenographers, messenger boys, and unexplained people with papers in their hands who were hovering about him. Mona remembered him from the day of the show. "Ah, yes, little lady," Mr. Prothero exclaimed, breaking away from the knot of people. "Come right along, come right along. This is Mr. Niles Carrington, the director of the Penfold people. Niles, this little lady, we hope, is to take June Palfrey's place as Polly Penfold." Mr. Carrington had a flap of heavy hair on his brow, and his shirt was open at the collar. He looked at Mona exactly as he might have looked at a pair of shoes he was thinking of buying. "She seems sort of young," he said at last. "June is 16, after all. Think this one can handle it?" My, was Cuffy ever mad. She positively crackled with indignation. "She can handle anything," said Cuffy. "I never saw such a young one for acting. You'll find out." Mr. Carrington smiled at that. "Okay, I'll find out. By the way, what's her name?" "Mona Melendi," volunteered Mona, tired of being referred to as though she weren't there. "That's a pretty good name," Mr. Carrington decided. "Distinctive. We won't have to change it to Jennifer this or Sandra that. It's a pretty good name." "Thank you," said Mona. All this time they had been walking down a long corridor, and now Mr. Prothero held open a door, and they all went into a broadcasting studio. It was a small, electrically lighted room with a microphone in the middle of it, and some hard chairs, and a piano. Set in the wall was a large plate-glass window, which revealed various mysterious instruments, and a pale-faced man wearing spectacles who looked solemnly out at them like a fish in an aquarium. "All right, little lady," said Mr. Prothero. "Here's a script. Let's see what you can do with it. Stand close to the mic." Mona read the script aloud. It required everything of her. It required her to be happy, to be sad, to laugh, cry, scream with terror, and moan with pain. But she didn't feel that it was too severe a test. She was sustained by the familiar sense of belief in her own power which always accompanied her acting. "Now again," commanded Mr. Carrington when she had finished. All in all, she read the script 4 times. Other people were called in to listen and confer, and at the end of it Mr. Prothero said, "All right, little lady, I think you'll do." And she overheard Mr. Carrington saying to Cuffy, "I guess you're right. She seems to be able to handle almost anything." On Tuesdays and Fridays she was to go to town with Cuffy, an hour of rehearsal with the other actors first, and then the performance itself at 4 o'clock. She had special permission to miss half a day at school twice a week, though she would have to make it up later. On the day of her first performance, Father took a day off and went to the broadcasting studio with Mona. The rest of the family listened in at home. My heart's thumping like anything, Randy said, swallowing, and the palms of my hands are wet. I feel just like I did the day of the show. You can count on it Mona's not feeling like that, though. Cuffy shook her head admiringly. When I took her up for the audition, I was trembling like a blancmange, but she was just as cool as a cucumber. A silvery peal sounded from the radio. "It's 4 o'clock," said Rush excitedly. "She'll be coming on in a minute. Listen." There was a moment of stillness, then a faint sound like a sigh, and a man's voice began to speak. It was a rich, velvety voice. You could almost hear the nap on it, Rush thought. "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen," it said. "Do you suffer from indigestion? Are you a victim of heartburn, nausea, irritation after eating? Do you look longingly at foods you dare not touch? Toss feverishly all night after a hearty dinner? Ladies and gentlemen, there is an answer, a remedy for your problems. It is an old one, a reliable one, and in all probability one which your mother, yes, even your grandmother used with beneficial results. What's its name? Aqua-Elixir. Just ask for the little green package at any drugstore." "Mona Melendi, the Princess of the Pancreas," said Rush, but the voice was continuing. "This afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, we present another chapter in the lives of the fascinating Penfold family. Added to today's performance is a surprise in the form of a new little lady who is to play the part of Polly Penfold, 14-year-old sister of Diana, Bob, and Jimmy. She is little Miss Mona Melendi, blonde, blue-eyed, pretty as a picture. I just wish you could see her, ladies and gentlemen. I know you would give her a great big hand. And now, the Penfold people." "Boy, she'll never be the same again," said Rush, but Cuffy shushed him indignantly, and the play began.